Hi guys, this is going to be part 4 on how to make a top-down movement game in the console using Python. So in the last video, we created the player and its movement as well. So in today's video, we're going to be creating the enemy and its basic AI. So I'm going to jump straight ahead into the code. So we're going to create another class, this time for the enemy. So I'm going to write class enemy. So I'm going to write some variables as well that is contained within the enemy class. So I'm going to write count equals 1, health equals 6, the x pose, which is equal to 0 for now, and the y pose equals to 0 as well. B1, we want to set also can move equals to false, dead equals to false, range equals 3, the graphics to equals to the hashtag, damage equals to 2, and player equals this, the add sign. So now we're going to have four functions inside this class. The four of them are the getting damage to damage the enemy, to check health check to check for the health, position, which is to set the position of the enemy, and moving, which will be for the enemy to move. So I'm going to write them down. So I'm going to write the getting damage function first. This is very simple. I'm just going to write define getting damaged, and I'm going to put self dot health minus equals player1 dot damage. And then now we're going to do the define health check, which is to check the health of the enemy. So we're going to put define health check, and then I'm going to global wait time to get access to wait time variable, and I'm going to check if self dot health is less than or equal to 0 and not self dead dot dead, so which means it's dead already, but the dead variable is still false. Then we want to set board of self dot y pose and self dot x pose to equals to nothing. That means the enemy is gone. We want to print the enemy died, and we want to wait time dot sleep wait time, and then we want to put self dot dead equals true. So the purpose of this self.dead is so that later on in the move function, the enemy won't be able to move anymore or attack. So now let's move on to the position function to set the position of the enemy. So it's just really simple. Define position, and then we want to global the board. We want to set board of self.y pose and self.x pose to equals to self.graphics. Now is the bit of a confusing part, is the moving part. So first off, we have to check whether the player is in range of the enemy. That is why we have this range of 3, which means the enemy within 3 steps away from the enemy within that range, the enemy will be able to detect the player. So, but first off, that's why we have this this dead variable. So because if the enemy is dead, we don't want to move anymore. But because it's not dead, we have to move. And that's why we also have this can move function. Because if there's no player around within the range of the enemy, we obviously can't move. So we first have to check for that parameter. So I'm going to write in define moving. I'm going to global board, and then I'm going to check if not self dot can move, that means it's false. That means we can't move, and we want to check if self dot and not self.dead, which means we're both not dead and we can move. Then we want to check if board of self.yPose and self minus self.range, which means it's going to be on top, because when the yPose starts from the top to the bottom. So we're checking whether above 3 steps of the enemy, is there a player? So we're just going to write also self.expose, that means the current expose value is equal to self.board self.player, or so we also want to check for both right, left, and bottom. So I'm going to real quick write this out. Once we have checked whether is there a player around us, we want to check whether then we want to set self.canMove equals to true. So what happens when self.canMove is equal to true? We are then able to move. So then we want to check in the move function whether if self.canMove and not now self.dead, which means we're alive and we can move, then we want to check if self.yPose minus player1.yPose is greater than 0, which means the player is below the enemy. Then we have to check if board of self.yPose minus 1 and self.expose is equals player. Then we want to minus player1.health minus equals self.damage. Then we want to print enemy attacked you, and then we want to time.sleep with wait time, else we want to move towards the enemy, towards the player. So we want to check if board of self.yPose minus 1 and self.expose equals to empty. Then we want to set board of self.yPose and self.expose to equal to nothing. And we want self.yPose to minus 1 to go up. And then we want board of self.yPose and self.expose equals to self.graphics. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest for left, right, and on top, and I'll be back real soon. Okay, and there we go. I'm back. So that should be about it for the enemy class. So now we can go ahead and implement the enemy on the board. So because we have more than one enemy normally, I would like to it will make our lives easier if we instead create a list to hold all enemies. So I'm going to write enemy equals these brackets, and then we want to create an instance of the enemy1 equals enemy. Then we want to append this to the class, so enemy.append enemy1 to the list. And then now we can set enemy's position down here. We can set below here enemy1 dot position, and on top of that we want to set enemy1 dot expose to equals to 5, and enemy1 dot yPose equals to 5. So and then we're going to go down here below player inputs. We're going to check for I in range of enemy dot length. We want to do enemy of I dot moving. So we're going to loop through this entire list, and for each enemy that's inside, we want to enable moving. We can also check health as well. So we can put enemy I dot health check. And other than that, that should be fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up the command prompt to test this out. So I'm going to type in python main.py. So there you go. Enemy, you can see clearly the enemy is on position 5, 5. So I'm going to try to get the enemy to chase me. Of course, this system is a bit buggy, but it works, I guess. So there you go. The enemy is chasing us now. Even the enemy can attack us. And there we go. We can obviously see it works. So I'm going to quit this, and there we go. So you have just created an enemy for the game. So that's going to be it for this video. I'll be uploading this file to my GitHub page where you can find it for reference and to follow along as well. Part 5 will be out shortly. And until then, thank you for watching. Cheers.